Hey, this is Brian, the main contributor to the Smart Connections Obsidian plugin, and I'm about to go through the different GitHub issues that I have been unable to respond to. It takes a lot of time to read through the issues and formulate a good response, so I'm hoping that by recording my process, you can see what I'm thinking as I'm coming up with the response, and hopefully that will provide you with more insights on what the future of smart connections look like, and also answer whatever questions it is that you had in the issue itself. Thanks for watching, and let's get started. Issue number 70, feature request, enabling Smart Chat to understand task prioritization. That's a good one. I also manage tasks in Obsidian. Do JavaScript. I'm trying to think how it would be best to address this. Like what would enable okay, so I'll just start with some thoughts that I've had about tasks and how they're used in Obsidian, particularly with the Smart Connections plugin. So one of the recent additions in version 2.2 is reranker models. It's pretty self-explanatory. Like you might have a list of tasks that you ranked by priority, and like you could use a reranker model to update that priority. This is very similar to, if you asked the, standard LLM model or like generative model to do the, like resorting the priority. The difference is that it's not as compute intensive. So, like something I'm looking forward to is having local reranker models, because, this way you can potentially update your priority of your tasks and whatever task lists you have all locally. So that's pretty neat. As far as understanding task prioritization, if you're using a more advanced model, like anything GPT-4 level or later, I think that inherently the models understand, the prioritization pretty well. Like I think that adding system prompts is like one way you could address this, because, like for me, I have different little things that I add, to describe priority of a task. Like number one, I have a next actions heading, and that heading exists in like the majority of my notes. Like the majority of my notes are project based. So like, if there's this, whether it's a large project or a sub project, like what needs to be done next, I put those tasks under a next action setting, but I also have a couple tags I use. There's like a 10x tag, and then I have a 15-minute tag. These tags allow me to use data view, to pull those tasks to the top of my lists. So like if I have like a data view full of my next actions, and then I might have the 10x next actions and the 15-minute next actions at the top, because I know those are either high impact or low energy. So it seems like this issue kind of got sidetracked into talking about like temperature settings. So I'm going to say, closing this, because it'd be cool if I could like do a voice. Is there like a voice input? Not that I'm aware of. So let's just keep going. Closing this because the most recent discussion deviates from the issue title. If any of these topics are still an issue, please either reopen or create a new and more specific issue regarding the feature you would like to see. Okay, like I think that being able to leverage the AI for task prioritization, I mean, I really see that as like the end game here. Like this gets into my vision, for the future of empowering individuals with these tools. But like, I want to wake up in the morning and, like right now, before I make a little note card, which I should have brought with me because it had the one thing I wanted to accomplish today, which was, recording these videos, to address these outstanding issues. But it'd be fantastic if I could wake up in the morning and not only did I have like, hey, these are probably your top priorities, based on what I was doing yesterday or what's like recently on my mind. Because like when I come up with, for me, like the one thing that I need to do the next day, that's like highly dependent on like what's currently in my head, which is like a tiny fraction of what I have in my Obsidian. So like, this even gets into like why I created smart connections in the first place. So I had this seemingly constant issue where I would be like going through my notes or, like I'd be looking for a document, before I used Obsidian, and I would find a extensive document with ideas and work, things that I had done previously that I like seemingly completely forgot about. I created smart connections so then at least like when I'm working on something, those documents that I might have forgotten about, like there's just like a chance now that they pop up in the smart view, and then that reminds me like, oh hey, like don't repeat yourself, like leverage this work that you did, months ago. It was like maybe it might have been too early like at the time of creating that note or document, but like now you're working on something that's like the same or similar because it's the right time. So like, leverage what you already did and like, don't do rework. So like getting back to the vision, AI has the essentially review my entire Obsidian vault to come up with like what are my top priorities for the day. So I want to make it so that these like this understanding of task prioritization is like it's not just limited even to the order in the list or some tag that like I added, but instead I want to enable the AI to come up with the best task, like for me to do next in terms of the work that I've put into describing my purpose and my visions for the future and, like my current objectives. So really like leveraging the fact that I've, like worked on these different higher level horizons, which is a concept from the Getting Things Done, books at this point. Yeah. So really task prioritization is huge. I definitely expect to see more, in this regard. I know I just closed this issue, but I think that's just because, like this was from over a year ago. So, like the reference frame that we have now is like a little different, but yeah, I definitely think that this thread still may pop up again in the future. As you have seen, I have these issues in my Obsidian. So when I'm working on something related to task prioritization and the smart connections plugin, this issue should come up. I mean, you know, as a developer, I have this fear of like doing live demos because it never works, like how you want it to. But let's just give it a shot because sometimes when things do work, it's almost like magical. So that'd be really cool for this video here. So let's create a new. Let's talk about maximizing understanding of task priority in the smart connections plugin. And like what I'm expecting to see is, like improved prioritization, enabling AI to prioritize, like we have this command here. So smart connections, refresh and make connections, let's add the reranker. See if that brings it to the top. Oh, there's another API key I need to update. But refresh and make connections. Huh, that's too bad. Like let's see if we can force it to work. Make, refresh. Okay, so that was what I was hoping would not happen. Let's just like for testing purposes, let's see. Like if I had put this issue inside of the notes, like what would have happened? What is missing? Like I'm looking for a number, because all of the GitHub issues, start with a number. It's too bad. I was hoping that would work. So like prioritizing tasks, smart connections. Prioritizing tasks, smart connections. Yeah, so, shit happens. And in this case, that shit is that search feature is currently broken. So let's, let's make sure we make note of that. As you can see, got my next actions fixed. Smart view search not working. Just task prioritization. Yeah, so like that should, this is the note for the issue we were just working on. Huh? Okay, well, there's one last thing I just want to try before we call that test a failed test. And that is just going into the plugins and restarting smart connections, because sometimes the issues are fixed with the restart. But yeah, so looking for 71. Yeah, too bad. Okay, well, I do this to look for opportunities to improve, and let's see. Let's add a task here. Desired outcome. This note should show the note in the smart view. And another possibility is like, so we got 36 words, 236 characters, and I noticed I had this setting in here. Minimum embedding length is 300. So like, let's just double this up and see if that changes things. So, now we got 475 characters, so this should definitely be embedded correctly now. Okay. There we go. I feel a lot better about that. So it looks like the issue that we were experiencing was this note was not long enough to trigger an embedding. I don't like how that user experience was. So like let's just pop that out. Just triple that up. Or do something else. That might take too long. Let's just copy this again. So it's like effectively the same content, just kind of hacking it to have a extra characters, but semantically, I mean, it should be the same. And like if we go back here, refresh, we've got the desired note up here. What can we do in that smart view note? We could do clarified and improved UI UX for when refresh and make smart connections command is used, but the current note length is less than the minimum threshold. So, clarified, decided, may override the threshold. I think that's like probably the best, but may notify user that was not embedded because it didn't reach the minimum threshold. Yeah, so there we go. So that was a little bit of an experiment. Let's get back to this issue and see what we can do to move onward. We're closed, but we recorded this video, so I will follow up with that video so anybody that might be interested in what just happened can see that. Okay, onward.